Kenya's got a gold mine. Alright, let's talk about something we all have. Coins. You know, those little metal discs rattling around in your car's cup holder or deep in the abyss of your couch cushions. For most of us, they're just pocket change, maybe enough to buy a gumball if you can even find a gumball machine anymore. But what if I told you that in Kenya, some of these little pieces of metal are worth more than a brand new car? It sounds crazy, right? Like something out of a movie where a treasure map leads to a hidden chest, but this isn't fiction. This is the real story of how a tiny, seemingly ordinary coin became a legendary treasure, a small piece of history that tells a big story about a nation's journey. You see, every country's money tells a story. It's like a history book you can hold in your hand. In America, you have presidents on your bills and coins, each one a chapter in the nation's story. Well, Kenya is no different. Their coins are packed with symbols, faces, and stories that trace their path from ancient trade routes to a modern, independent nation. It's a journey filled with drama, change, and even a little bit of mystery. We're going to dive into this world, a world where the value of something isn't just what's stamped on it, but the incredible history it carries with it. So, get ready to look at your pocket change a little differently from now on. This journey isn't just for history buffs or serious coin collectors with those little white gloves and magnifying glasses. No, this is for anyone who loves a good story. It's a tale of how something so small can connect you to a time of great change, a moment when a country was finding its new identity. We'll travel back in time, long before Kenya was even called Kenya, and see how trade worked. Then we'll fast forward through colonial times and witness the birth of a new currency for a new nation. It's a roller coaster of history, and the star of our show is a coin so rare, so special, that people have spent decades searching for it. So, empty your mental piggy bank of everything you thought you knew about coins. We are not just talking about currency, we are talking about artifacts. These are tiny metal canvases that paint a picture of independence, politics, and national pride. The story of Kenya's most valuable coin is a perfect example of how history can sometimes create accidental treasures, turning everyday objects into priceless relics. It's a story that proves that sometimes the biggest treasures come in the smallest packages. And trust me, by the end of this, you'll be checking every single coin you find, just in case. Long before anyone in East Africa was jingling coins in their pockets, trade was already booming. But how did you buy anything? You couldn't just tap your phone or swipe a card. Forget that. We're talking about a time when the currency was much more interesting. Imagine going to the market to trade with things like cowrie shells, those beautiful small white shells from the Indian Ocean. These were like the original dollar bills of the coast. Merchants from Arabia, Persia, and India would sail in on their dhows, and instead of asking for shillings or dollars, they'd trade their spices, silks, and pottery for ivory, gold, and yes, those little shells. It wasn't just shells though. Different communities had their own forms of currency. In some places, colorful beads were the height of fashion and finance. Each color and pattern could have a different value. So your wealth might be literally worn around your neck as a fancy necklace. In other areas, livestock like goats and cows were the ultimate measure of riches. If you wanted to pay a dowry or buy a large piece of land, you weren't counting coins, you were counting cattle. This system, known as barter trade, was all about exchanging goods and services directly. It was a personal, hands-on economy where the value of something was agreed upon right then and there. Think about it. This system worked for centuries. It was built entirely on trust and the shared understanding of value. An Arab trader knew exactly how many bags of spices a tusk of ivory was worth. A local farmer knew how many chickens he needed to trade for a new tool. It was a complex dance of negotiation. Then, around the 9th century, things started to change a bit. Coins from distant lands like the Middle East and China began to appear along the Swahili coast in places like Lamu and Mombasa. Archaeologists have found these ancient coins, proof that Kenya was part of a global trade network long before Europeans drew lines on a map. These foreign coins weren't used by everyone, of course. They were mostly handled by the wealthy merchants in the coastal cities. For most people living inland, the old ways of trading with goods, livestock, and beads continued for a very long time. But the arrival of these first coins was a sign of things to come. It was the first little whisper of a new economic system, a system based on standardized, portable, and durable units of value. The seed was planted for a future where a small metal disc could represent the value of a cow, a bag of spices, or a day's hard work. The age of barter was slowly, very slowly, beginning to fade. Fast forward a few hundred years, and the British arrive. And when colonial powers show up, they bring a lot of things with them. New laws, new languages, and you guessed it, new money. Suddenly, the mix of Indian rupees, cowrie shells, and German currency that was floating around wasn't going to cut it. The British established the East African Protectorate and decided everyone needed to get on the same page, financially speaking. In 1921, they introduced the East African shilling. For the first time, people in Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania were all using the same official coin. And whose face was on that coin? The British monarch, of course. For decades, Kenyans used coins featuring the face of King George V, then King George VI, and finally Queen Elizabeth II. Imagine that. Every time you bought something, you were looking at the face of a ruler from thousands of miles away. These coins were a constant daily reminder of who was in charge. They were well-made, durable, and accepted everywhere, but they represented a foreign authority. The designs were very British, with the monarch on one side and maybe a lion or a crown on the other. It was the money of the British Empire, not the money of the Kenyan people. It served its purpose, but it lacked a soul, a connection to the land and its heritage. Then came the winds of change. The struggle for independence, the Mau Mau uprising, the powerful calls for uhuru, freedom. On December 12, 1963, Kenya finally became an independent nation. It was a moment of immense joy and pride. But being independent is more than just raising a new flag. It's about forging your own identity, and a huge part of that is creating your own national symbols. This meant a new flag, a new national anthem, and, crucially, new money. The time had come to say goodbye to the Queen's face on the currency, and to put a Kenyan face on Kenyan money. It was a powerful statement of sovereignty. In 1966, the Central Bank of Kenya was established, and it got to work on one of its most important tasks, designing and issuing the first currency of the Republic of Kenya. This was a massive undertaking. The new coins had to represent the spirit of the new nation. They had to be a symbol of hope, progress, and self-rule. The man chosen to grace the first coins of independent Kenya was the nation's founding father and first president, Mzee Jomo Kenyatta. His portrait on the coins was more than just a picture, it was a declaration. It said, "We are in charge of our own destiny now." It was the end of one era and the proud beginning of another. So Kenya is independent, and it's time for new money. The Central Bank of Kenya releases a whole new family of coins in 1966. You have the 5 cent, 10 cent, 25 cent, 50 cent, 1 shilling, and 2 shilling coins. On the front of every single one is the confident, forward-looking portrait of President Jomo Kenyatta. On the back, you have beautiful symbols of Kenya's heritage and economic strength, coffee leaves, a majestic lion, and the national coat of arms. People were proud to use these coins. They were a tangible piece of their hard-won freedom. But among this new family of coins, one of them was destined for legendary status, the humble 5-cent piece. Now, you might be thinking, the 5-cent coin? The smallest one? How can that be the most valuable? That's the beauty of this story. It's not about the face value, it's about the backstory. The 1966 5-cent coin was part of that very first batch of currency ever issued by the independent Republic of Kenya. It was a tiny bronze coin, nothing fancy. On the front, it had President Kenyatta's portrait, and on the back, it featured the Kenyan coat of arms with the 2 lions holding spears and a shield. For its time, it was just a regular coin, worth, well, 5 cents. You could probably buy a single sweet with it, and that's about it. This coin is significant because it marks a pivotal moment in history. It represents the first step away from the colonial past. Every groove and detail on that coin was a deliberate choice to celebrate Kenya. The portrait of Kenyatta was a symbol of new leadership. The coat of arms on the reverse was a symbol of national unity and the defense of freedom. For the first time, Kenyans were carrying coins that reflected their own identity, their own leaders, and their own aspirations. It wasn't just money to buy bread and milk. It was a small token of national pride, a miniature monument to independence that could fit in the palm of your hand. At the time, nobody thought to save these 5-cent coins. Why would you? They were common, low value, and meant to be spent. They circulated widely, passing through thousands of hands in markets, shops, and homes across the country. They were used, abused, and eventually, as inflation made them practically worthless, they were withdrawn from circulation. Little did anyone know that a specific version of this unassuming coin, one with a tiny, almost unnoticeable difference, would one day become the holy grail for coin collectors in East Africa and beyond. Its journey from a common piece of change to a priceless artifact was just beginning. Every great treasure has a great story, and Kenya's most valuable coin is no exception. The legend is tied to a dramatic moment in Kenyan politics. In 1978, President Jomo Kenyatta passed away. This was a monumental event for the nation. He had been the only leader the country had known since independence. His successor was his vice president, Daniel Arap Moi. As is customary, when a new leader takes power, the country's currency is updated to reflect the change. The plan was to replace Kenyatta's portrait on all coins and banknotes with the portrait of the new president, Moi. The Central Bank of Kenya moved quickly. They began the process of designing and minting new coins with President Moi's face on them. This is where the story gets interesting and, honestly, a little bit mysterious. According to the legend, a batch of coins was minted without any portrait at all. Can you imagine that? A coin with a blank space where the president's head should be. The story goes that these mutilated or headless coins were created during that transitional period in late 1978 and early 1979. It was a time of political uncertainty, and some say the mint was unsure whose portrait to use, so they just left it blank. This tale has been passed down among collectors and Kenyans for decades. People whisper about the coin with no head, a phantom piece of currency that represents a moment of national limbo. The idea is so captivating, a coin that by its very emptiness tells a powerful political story. Was it a mistake at the mint? Was it a deliberate act of political commentary? A symbol of a nation waiting for its new leader? Or is it just a fantastic myth, a good story that adds to the mystique of coin collecting? The truth is, no confirmed example of a genuinely blank Kenyan coin from that era has ever been publicly authenticated by a major grading service. While the headless coin might be more myth than reality, it's a crucial part of the folklore that fuels the passion for Kenyan numismatics. It creates an atmosphere of treasure hunting where anything seems possible. This legend, whether true or not, sets the stage for our actual hero, the rare 1966 5-cent coin. The search for one legendary coin often makes people look closer at all coins from that era. And in looking for a ghost, they sometimes find a real, tangible treasure. The story of the missing president adds a layer of intrigue and excitement to the entire history of Kenyan coins. So, if the headless coin is a ghost, what is the real treasure? The real deal, the coin that has collectors scrambling, is indeed a 5-cent piece, but not one with a missing head. It's a coin with the wrong head. Let me explain. When the new coins featuring President Daniel Arap Moi were being prepared in 1979, the mints had to create new dies. Those are the stamps used to strike the image onto the blank coins. The front die would have Moi's portrait, and the reverse die would have the coat of arms. This is where the magic, or rather the mistake, happened. It's a classic mix-up story, a mule coin as collectors call it. A mule coin is a numismatic error, where the front, or obverse of one coin type is paired with the back, or reverse, of a different coin type. In this case, an old die from 1966, featuring President Jomo Kenyatta's portrait, was accidentally paired with a new reverse die intended for the Moi-era coins. This new reverse die was slightly different from the original 1966 version. The most significant change was on the coat of arms. On the new die, the spears held by the lions had a slightly different design, so a tiny number of 5-cent coins were minted with Kenyatta's 1966 face on the front and the updated post-1978 coat of arms on the back. This was a complete accident. It likely happened during a transitional phase at the mint, where old and new equipment were being used alongside each other. Someone probably grabbed the wrong die, and a small batch of these error coins was produced before the mistake was caught. Because it was an error, these coins were never meant to exist. Most were likely destroyed at the mint. However, a few, and we're talking a very, very small number, must have slipped through quality control and made their way into circulation, mixed in with millions of other regular 5-cent coins. Nobody at the time would have noticed the tiny difference. This is what makes it so incredibly rare. It's not just an old coin, it's an error coin, a mule that documents a specific moment of transition at the mint. Experts believe that fewer than a handful of these coins exist today. Finding one is like finding a needle in a haystack the size of the entire country of Kenya. Its value doesn't come from the bronze it's made of, or its face value of 5 cents. Its value comes from its extreme rarity and the fascinating story of its accidental creation. It's a 1 in a million mistake that created a numismatic superstar, a tiny bronze witness to a moment of change. So what makes someone pay thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars for a 5-cent coin? Welcome to the world of numismatics, which is a fancy word for coin collecting. For these collectors, a coin isn't just money, it's an artifact, a piece of history, and a work of art all rolled into one. They are detectives, hunting for clues and stories hidden in metal. The 1966 Kenyatta Mule 5-cent coin is their ultimate prize. It's not just about owning something expensive, it's about owning a unique piece of Kenyan history that very few people even know exists. It's the thrill of the hunt and the prestige of owning the rarest of the rare. The value of a rare coin like this is determined by a few key factors. First and foremost is rarity. With only a few known examples, the demand from serious collectors far outstrips the supply, driving the price sky high. The second factor is condition. A coin that looks like it just left the mint, uncirculated, will be worth exponentially more than one that is worn, scratched, and corroded from being passed around for years. Collectors use a grading system to describe a coin's condition, from poor all the way up to mint state. Finding this specific mule coin in pristine condition would be the equivalent of winning the lottery. The community of collectors specializing in Kenyan coins is small but passionate. They share information, attend auctions, and compete to acquire the best pieces for their collections. The internet has revolutionized this hobby, allowing a collector in, say, Ohio, to connect with a dealer in Nairobi to hunt for these treasures. When one of these rare 1966 mule coins comes up for auction, it's a major event. The bidding can be intense, with prices reaching astonishing levels. In recent years, authenticated examples have been valued at over $10,000, and the price just keeps climbing as more people learn about its story. This intense interest from collectors has a wonderful side effect. It preserves history. By searching for, authenticating, and carefully preserving these coins, collectors are saving tiny pieces of Kenya's national story from being lost forever. They are the guardians of these metallic artifacts. They document the political changes, the artistic designs, and even the manufacturing mistakes that tell the story of a nation's journey. The high value placed on a coin like the 1966 5-cent mule ensures that its story will be told for generations to come, reminding everyone that history can be found in the most unexpected places. Ready for some quick, mind-blowing facts about Kenyan coins? Let's start with the big one. The word for money in Swahili, pesa, didn't come from Africa. It actually originated from the Indian rupee, which was called paisa. When Indian merchants and laborers came to East Africa during the colonial period, their word for money stuck, and it's still the common term used for money today across the region. So, every time someone in Kenya talks about pesa, they are using a word that traveled across the Indian Ocean centuries ago. How cool is that? It's a linguistic fossil in your pocket. Here's another one for you. You know how American coins have "In God We Trust"? Well, Kenyan coins have their own powerful motto. If you look closely at the Kenyan coat of arms on the back of the coins, you'll see a banner at the bottom with the word Harambee. This is Kenya's national motto, and it's a Swahili word that means pulling together. It was a rallying cry used by President Kenyatta to encourage communities to work together on projects to build the nation. Having it on every coin is a constant reminder of the importance of unity and teamwork in building a country. It's like a little dose of national inspiration with every purchase. Ever heard of a coin with a hole in it? The very first coins introduced by the British in the region, under the Imperial British East Africa Company in the 1890s, were copper pice coins with a hole right in the middle. This wasn't a mistake. The design was likely chosen so that people, who might not have had pockets in their traditional clothing, could string the coins together and wear them for safekeeping. It was a practical design for the time, a blend of a modern currency concept with a traditional way of carrying valuables. These holy coins are now rare collectibles themselves. Finally, let's talk about size. The original post-independence coins were quite large and heavy, especially the 1 and 2 shilling pieces. They were made of a cupro-nickel alloy and had a satisfying heft to them. However, over time, as the value of the metal became worth more than the face value of the coin, the government had to make them smaller and lighter. In 1995, Kenya introduced new, smaller steel-plated coins to save costs. Many older Kenyans still fondly remember the big shillings and feel that the modern lighter coins just don't feel as substantial or real as the old ones did. It's a classic case of they don't make them like they used to. So, after this journey through shells, queens, presidents, and mysterious errors, what have we learned? We've learned that a coin is never just a coin. It's a time capsule. The story of Kenya's coins, from the ancient trade beads to the legendary 1966 5-cent mule, is the story of Kenya itself. It's a narrative of shifting power, of a struggle for identity, and of the pride that comes with forging your own path. Each coin, whether common or unbelievably rare, holds a piece of that journey. It connects the person holding it today to all the hands that held it before, in bustling markets, rural villages, and growing cities. The fascination with Kenya's most valuable coin isn't just about its monetary worth. Its real value lies in the incredible story it tells, a story of a mistake, a transition, and a moment in time captured in bronze. It reminds us that history isn't always found in big monuments or dusty textbooks. Sometimes it's hidden in plain sight, in the mundane objects of everyday life. It encourages us to look closer, to be curious, and to ask questions about the things we take for granted. Who knows what stories are rattling around in your own pocket change right now? Today, Kenya continues to evolve, and so does its currency. In 2018, a new generation of coins was introduced. In a significant move away from the past, these new coins no longer feature any person's portrait. Instead, they celebrate Kenya's magnificent wildlife: a giraffe on the 5 shilling, a rhino on the 10 shilling, and a lion on the 20 shilling. This change reflects a modern Kenya, one that chooses to be represented not by a single leader, but by its rich natural heritage, a treasure that belongs to all Kenyans. It's a new chapter in the nation's numismatic story, one focused on conservation and national unity. The journey of Kenya's coins is a powerful lesson in how nations tell their stories. It shows us that symbols matter. Removing the Queen's face mattered, adding Kenyatta's face mattered, and today, celebrating wildlife matters. And somewhere in that long, rich history lies our accidental hero, the 1966 5-cent mule, a tiny error that became a legend. It serves as a permanent, shining reminder that even the smallest objects can carry the biggest stories, connecting us to the past and inspiring curiosity about the future of this vibrant and dynamic nation.